Greetings shippers, welcome back, and it's time for a moment that I bet some of you thought would never come. And the other half probably don't even know what I'm talking about. But I'm excited because we're finally going to talk about Carry On. This novel was written by Rainbow Rowell, and we had examined her prequel-ish novel, Fangirl, before. That examination happened a little over a year ago. So yeah, it's been a while. Her time is ever moving. Fangirl as a novel lays the foundation for this one, but also stands on its own. It goes into a whole bunch of themes such as aging, balancing fandom culture with real life, alcoholism, so much. There's a lot there. It's really worth checking out. If you want to know what we talked about it, I'll put the link down below, or you can click the card. It will be helpful for this video to have a bit of background. Just a bit. Smidge. Also, heads up, there are going to be some spoilers when we discuss this. Minimal ones, but they'll be there. So if you're the kind of person who doesn't like any inkling of that and you're planning on reading this book, get out now. You've been warned. Now, as for this discussion, it's going to be less a book review and more a meta-examination of how to examine this book as a fandom text, particularly when it pertains to fan fiction. So we're going to look at Carry On in regards to fandom and fan culture and how much of it pertains to that and whether it is indeed a part of it or simply examining it, or if it's doing none of that. So, without further ado, since you've waited long enough, let's talk about Carry On. Firstly, a brief synopsis. The plot follows Simon Snow, his friends Agatha, Penelope, and ostensibly his arch-nemesis Baz, as they all return for their last year at Watford School of Magic. Simon must balance his temperamental powers, political intrigue, and of course his quest to fight the insidious humdrum. Not to mention his obsession with finding out just what exactly is Baz up to. Carry On is a novel published in 2015 and is a spin-off novel arising from the novel Fangirl, which was published in 2013. The focus of this novel is the characters of the fictional Simon Snow book series, which was a Harry Potter amalgam which the main character of the novel Fangirl wrote fanfiction for, specifically slash fiction, for the characters Simon and Baz, the former an allusion to Harry Potter, the latter to Draco. While this novel's title Carry On seems to imply that the book may actually be the fanfiction story Kath was writing in that novel, which was entitled Carry On Simon, Rainbow Rowell has explicitly stated that it is not, and that this book is her getting a chance to play with characters she didn't really get to when she was writing Fangirl, as those scenes within that novel are meant to be written by Kath, and do not take up a large portion of the novel. Indeed, some fans actually skip those portions when reading Fangirl. However, Rowell herself was intrigued by these characters and wanted the chance to work through them as herself, not as Kath and not as the fictional author of the series, Gemma T. Leslie, featured in Fangirl. This directly pertains to the main question one must answer when looking at this book as it pertains to fandom. Is it a work of fanfiction? Rowell explicitly says no, stating, "I think it's just straight up fiction. Some people have said, oh, you're writing fan fiction for your own book. I don't think it's fan fiction. I think it's more like canon, because even though Simon Snow is fictional inside of Fangirl, I still had to make him up. He still feels like my character." As the former statement intimates, it must be noted that since Simon Snow's characters are her creation, whatever work she creates wouldn't technically fall under the realm of fanfiction as she is the original author. However, there are some who feel that ultimately Carry On is still a piece of fanfiction, or at least a remix of Harry Potter. Firstly, we must define a fandom remix, as the term has been applied to Carry On, though it may not fully apply. A remix in the fandom sense of the term is when an author reworks another author's piece of fanfiction, not necessarily changing the framework, but ultimately reworking how it is presented and where the emphasis may lie, to create something different if not entirely new. There are many who feel that Carry On is simply a reworking of Harry Potter, and Rowell has never denied that she did use J.K. Rowling's work as a framework when thinking up a large fictional series for her character Kath to be invested in the novel Fangirl, as she feels that Harry Potter created a true upsurge in fan fiction that introduced it to a whole new world of young readers that greatly galvanized the subculture, stating, "The Harry Potter generation is the generation where fan fiction really became a big deal. Even if you weren't writing fan fiction yourself, you know it's there. You're just much more fluent in the internet." The role Harry Potter has played in fandom history can be left for another time. However, when it comes to Carry On, while the inspiration is still there, Rowell also went to great pains to rework it, and is not just reworking of Rowling's work, but of all of Rowell's previous experience with fantasy as a genre, and really create her own world of magicians as they are known in her universe. And the characters in Carry On do stand on their own. However, it is also extremely difficult to not read them against Harry Potter characters, something the author fully anticipates and welcomes, stating, "I wanted to reference Harry Potter in intentional ways, but I wanted the characters to feel like they had their own lives. If there's ever a Harry Potter or Star Wars or Lord of the Rings or a Twilight reference, I want it to feel very intentional. Look at what I'm doing here. I I know Harry as a character really well because I've invested so much time in him, and Draco as well, so it was fun to reference them if you're reading my books. You've read Harry Potter, you've seen the Star Wars movies, you've seen the Lord of the Rings movies, you've watched Buffy. It's fun to have an audience that you can look at and you can wink at, like, oh, see what I'm doing here? Statements such as this one lead many to feel that the work is indeed fanfiction, particularly looking at I know Harry as a character very well and I've invested much time in him, as this is largely the mentality that many who write fanfiction specifically for Harry Potter themselves feel. However, as they are not working with their own characters, they cannot label their work as original. As a result, while many love Carry On as a novel, it is clear why some feel that if not necessarily fanfiction, then it is an update and critique or commentary of Harry Potter, as many of the plot points, narrative devices, and character changes are things that have been discussed in fandom culture and often worked through extensively in Harry Potter fanfiction. These include the additions of protagonists of color, specifically Penelope, who can be seen as an intriguing fusion of Hermione and Ron, with a progressive go-get-em attitude. Some view this as a direct reference to fans critiquing Rowling for not having many characters of color play active roles throughout her series, as well as the headcanon that Hermione was a woman of color. Carry On is also told from a variety of different character perspectives, which greatly enriches the world and creates intrigue while allowing one to really get to know the characters and their motivations, making them all much more relatable, even the villains. This was again a critique that was leveled against Harry Potter, seeing as how the book is ultimately told largely from Harry's perspective, even though it is third person. The person the third person is observing is Harry, and as a result, some do not feel that Harry is the most reliable narrator, and that there may be much more to the other characters than Harry knows. This novel is also a godsend for those who had issues with Dumbledore's treatment of Harry, as it plays out between the mage and Simon. Though because of this also makes certain plot points and twists much more obvious for those who already thought that Dumbledore was not to be trusted. However, this does not make the novel any less enjoyable, as the focus is largely on character development as well as world building. And of course, this brings us to the central romance between Baz and Simon, which not only allows for a canonical queer romance, but also highlights Drarry shippers, one of the top pairings in the Harry Potter pantheon. For many, Carry On is the canonical Harry Potter fanfic they wanted. It gives them Drarry without giving them Drarry, by giving them Baz and Simon. Just as it, some would say, corrects and others would say addresses issues that many have come to have with the Harry Potter series as time has gone by. So with all of that being said, can Carry On stand on its own, or does it require prior knowledge of these texts to enjoy the novel? As to whether it requires prior knowledge, the answer is no. The novel is not completely derivative of Harry Potter, nor does it hit those novels' plot points beat for beat. Instead, it creates its own compact story firmly rooted in its own fantasy world with its own rules and characters, that create its own gaps and indeed have launched its own fan fictions and headcanons and theories. All of this, while recognizable, also feels unique and fully realized. At least it does if you're a fan of how Rowell does her character development, which focuses on a very realistic and relatable slant, trying to make the characters feel how people today feel, today at the time of this recording. However, a knowledge of the other texts enhances enjoyment of this story as the meta elements can be applied and examined, as Carry On is fanficky in the best of ways. The term fanficky is often applied as an insult, to note that a work is lesser than, or that the plot points are cliche and not properly worked through. Carry On shows how these plot points can be skillfully applied and create a book every inch as much as a novel as other YA and fantasy works. It showcases what fanfiction can be at its very best, utilizing the framework of somebody else's story, be it plot, tropes, or base characters, and transforming them into something new that tells a different story with a different message while working with the same text. Carry On takes it a step further by the fact that they are Rowell's characters in her own world, and they are her own characters. While there are similarities, Baz is not Draco and Simon is not Harry, though they can of course be compared, but so too can many other characters in fanfiction, and some would say that the comparisons actually enrich each character and make them more distinct by highlighting the differences as well as the similarities. Carry On showcases how texts can inform each other in the best of ways. While it cannot necessarily be said that Carry On would not exist without Harry Potter, it most certainly would not be the same, and the two fandoms will continue to be linked. While Carry On has its own appreciative fanbase and its own fanfiction and fan art for its characters within its world, it is nowhere near the amount produced by Harry Potter. As a result, some fans who ship Baz and Simon read Drarry fanfiction to get their fill of the characters. Indeed, when Carry On first came out, there was a bit of an upswing in people reading and producing Drarry fics. Within Carry On's own fandom, Baz and Simon is the dominant pairing, especially in fanfiction, which creates an intriguing trail of ponderance, the dominant ship being a fictional couple originally envisioned as fanfiction characters themselves who were paired together to examine the subtextual appeal present for certain fans in another series. It also has its own art, which Rowell is quite fond of, herself being a member of fan culture and greatly enjoying fandom, and more importantly, understanding it. Her Her view being, I don't think ideas are as clean and separate as we think they are. Definitely there is fanfiction that takes my characters in a direction that I wouldn't intend for them. Almost all fanfiction. They're taking it away from the path that I've charted. It doesn't really bother me. So is Carry On fanfiction? Not in the strictest sense of the term. However, it is a clear homage to another work, updated, changed, and reimagined for a new era, which is what has made it resonate so strongly with so many fans, especially younger fans. And how similar or dissimilar one finds it will vary, and of course there are some who completely take it on its own merit, so it can be read a variety of ways. Carry On showcases how the word derivative need not always be an insult, how works inform one another, and similar concepts can produce completely different results when examined by different people through different lenses. By its mere existence, it is a tacit approval of fanfiction and fan culture, even if it is not an explicit part of it. And for fans of fandom and Harry Potter, it is a fascinating read as a meta text. However, it must be stressed, it is also a fascinating read all on its own. So check it out and see what you think. So how do you feel about Carry On? Does it stand alone as its own work to you, or does it give you fanficky vibes? And if so, does that bother you? Simon and Baz or Harry and Draco? The world needs to know, and I do too. And of course, did you like the book? Let me know why or why not down below. I'm just so happy to have finally filmed this. It was #1 on my list of promised videos that I wanted to get to this year, so I am feeling absolutely fantastic. Let me know if you've been around since the days of Fangirl. Those were some early days, pre-on-camera days. So as for how I felt about Carry On, well, if you want to know, then I'm excited to tell you about the live stream that I'm going to be doing this coming Tuesday, the April when? April 17th. I did one of these live streams last Tuesday and it was so much fun. You guys made me feel so welcome and I love responding to you guys in real time. So I decided, you know what? This is going to be a thing that we do on a regular basis. So keep your Tuesdays clear, 9 p.m. EST. We're going to have Talk Time Tuesday and we're going to chat about all kinds of stuff. For this Talk Time, we're going to talk about Carry On versus Harry Potter and just our general feelings about Carry On and fandom novels in general. So it's going to be a good time. So I really hope to see you there. And if I don't, no worries, I'll catch you next time because there are many more videos to come, and let's get to the outro. Bye-bye. This has been Shipper's Guide to the Galaxy. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Special thanks to all of my patrons, names on the side, for helping to support the show. I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of you guys on Tuesday, and of course, as always, looking forward to next time, for there are as many ships out there as there are stars in the sky.